There's been a lot of talk in Republican presidential circles of knowing then what you know now about WMD. Would the U.S., should the U.S. have invaded Iraq to begin with? Let me ask you a question about a more recent decision. Knowing then what we know now about ISIS in Iraq, was it a mistake for President Obama to not have pushed harder to keep U.S. troops in Iraq?
I think even had there been no ISIS, that it would have been far better for us to maintain some presence, some troop presence in Iraq for a much longer period of time. Our presence there gave us access and gave us influence. We were able to constrain Maliki's worst instincts. We were able to ensure that the leadership of the Iraqi security services was based on competence and merit. and once we left, all the generals that we had trained and that we had helped select were all fired and replaced by a bunch of political hacks. One of the reasons that the Iraqi security forces are so hapless is that so many of their officers were just a bunch of political appointees that had no skill. So even had there been no ISIS, a longer-term presence by U.S. forces, I think, was necessary.
You write in the book about the only major decision with which you disagreed with then Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, with whom you had a very strong working relationship, as well as with her predecessor, Condi Rice. You had a very strong relationship with her. But you said the biggest decision that you disagreed with her on was about whether or not the U.S. should intervene militarily in Libya. Looking back on it, you feel comfortable in your decision? I mean, the genocide in Benghazi was prevented, and yet you look at what's going on in Libya, it's argued that the Obama administration had a plan for afterwards.
Well, no plan. And the irony is that some of those who were the most critical of President Bush for not having a plan in Iraq after Saddam Hussein was ousted didn't have a plan for what to do in Libya after Gaddafi was ousted. I think we just overestimate our ability to shape events in these countries, and we pay too little attention to things like the law of unintended consequences. I believe that if you look at Libya today, that my opposition to our intervening there was the right thing to have done. I think particularly once we prevented the humanitarian slaughter that we all worried about in Benghazi when Gaddafi's troops were headed in that direction. But once we prevented that, and we could, for a much smaller cost, have sustained that protection of the eastern part of the country, I think going in and throwing out Gaddafi was a mistake.
All right, former